Elise Bennett, a struggling artist, agreed to a fake marriage with a millionaire CEO, Julian Mercer, for survival. But neither of them expected this cold contract to turn into a life-altering lesson about love and redemption. Before we dive into the story, let's do what Sleepless in Seattle taught us. Share where you're listening from. Comment below. The scent of oil paint and turpentine fills Elise's cramped studio apartment, mingling with morning sunlight that filters through cracked Venetian blinds. She stands before an easel, brush poised over canvas, studying the half-finished portrait with critical eyes. The client wants it done by Friday, but something about the shadowing around the eyes isn't quite right. Bills sprawl across her desk nearby, their red stamps visible even from here. Rent, utilities, art supplies, legal fees that make her stomach clench. Elise forces her attention back to the canvas, adding another careful stroke of burnt umber. Look, Aunt Elise. 7-year-old Anna holds up a sheet of paper covered in wild crayon swirls. It's us in our new house. Elise's heart twists as she sets down her brush. It's beautiful, sweetheart. She crouches beside Anna's small art table, taking in the cheerful stick figures standing before a large purple house with a red door. Tell me about it. This is you. Anna points to the taller figure. And this is me. And see the windows? They're big so we can see the stars at night. Her small finger traces the crayon lines. And there's a special room just for painting, with lots of space for all your art stuff. Elise swallows hard, watching Anna's face glow with innocent enthusiasm. Her phone buzzes on the counter, and she knows without looking that it's another message from Miss Callahan about the upcoming custody hearing. The lawyer's last email haunts her. The judge will be looking for stability, Miss Bennett, a steady income, proper housing, the ability to provide long-term security. Standing, Elise rolls her shoulders, trying to shake off the weight of worry. How about some lunch? We can make those special grilled cheese sandwiches you like. With the tomato soup? Anna's eyes light up. Of course. Elise manages a smile, though her chest aches. She has to succeed. Has to find a way to keep Anna. The alternative is unthinkable. 30 floors above the city, Julian Mercer stands at his floor-to-ceiling window, watching sunlight glint off glass and steel. His office is a study in minimalism. Sleek furniture, stark white walls, everything arranged with precise intention. Even the morning light seems controlled here, filtered through specially treated glass to eliminate glare. The 9 a.m. with the board has been pushed to 9:30, Marcus says from the doorway, tablet in hand. The investment team needs time to update their projections. After that, you have calls with Singapore at 11, lunch with the Riverside developers at 1, and the Kobayashi representatives want to move tomorrow's dinner to tonight. Julian adjusts his platinum cufflinks, a habit born of countless meetings where every detail matters. Fine, what else? Marcus hesitates, his usually smooth demeanor cracking slightly. There's another article, page 6. Show me. The tablet appears at Julian's elbow. The headline blares in garish text, Mercer's Wild Night, Playboy CEO spotted at exclusive club. Below, a grainy photo shows Julian leaving Le Rouge, Manhattan's newest hotspot. The article speculates about his companion, a mystery blonde barely visible in the background. It was a business dinner, Julian says, his voice clipped, with the head of European operations and her team. Of course, sir. Marcus's tone is carefully neutral. Should I have PR release a statement? Julian's jaw tightens as he studies the photo. The Kobayashi folder sits on his desk, a constant reminder of what's at stake. The Japanese firm is old school, traditional. They value stability, family connections, long-term partnerships. His reputation as a playboy bachelor could sink the entire deal. No statement, he decides. It would only draw more attention. He turns back to the window, dismissing Marcus with a slight nod. The city spreads before him like a chessboard, each building a piece in play. He's spent years cultivating his position, transforming his father's failing company into a global powerhouse. He won't let tabloid gossip threaten everything he's built. But as he reaches for his coffee, his hand brushes against a small black notebook buried under reports and contracts. The spine is cracked, pages dogered, a relic from his college days when he still believed in art, in creative expression, in things that couldn't be measured in profit margins. Julian shoves it aside, burying the memory along with the unfamiliar ache in his chest. That evening, Elise helps Anna with homework at their small kitchen table. The apartment feels smaller than usual, cramped with dreams too big for its walls. Anna's math worksheet lies between them, covered in careful numbers and occasional eraser marks. 7 times 8 is... Anna's forehead wrinkles in concentration. Try using the trick we practiced, Elise encourages, watching Anna count on her fingers. 56! Anna beams, penciling in the answer. I did it! You're getting so good at this. Elise runs a hand over Anna's dark curls, so like her brother's. The thought of James brings a familiar pang. He should be here, helping his daughter with homework, watching her grow. Instead, a drunk driver left Anna an orphan, and Elise fighting to keep custody against distant relatives who suddenly appeared with their perfect houses and stable incomes. Anna starts on the next problem, then pauses. Aunt Elise? Katie from school says she's moving to a new house, a big one with a swimming pool and everything. Anna traces the edge of her paper. When will we have a big house? The question hits like a physical blow. Elise forces her voice to stay steady. Soon, sweetheart. I promise. The lie tastes bitter, but what else can she say? How can she explain that her art barely covers rent, that the legal fees are draining her savings, that every day brings them closer to losing each other? Can I have a purple door like in my drawing? Of course. Elise blinks hard. And we'll have that special art room too, remember? Anna nods, satisfied, and returns to her math. Elise watches her work, memorizing every detail. The way she bites her lip in concentration, how her feet swing beneath the chair, the small smudge of grape jelly still visible on her sleeve. If the custody hearing goes wrong, moments like these could become memories too soon. Across town, Julian stands in his penthouse, city lights twinkling through walls of glass. The space is immaculate, designer furnished, worthy of any architectural magazine. It's also completely silent, the kind of quiet that seems to amplify every small sound. Ice shifting in his scotch, the distant hum of traffic far below his own breathing. He moves to his leather couch, sinking into its perfect cushions. The Kobayashi executives' words from their last video call echo in his mind. Family values are crucial to our corporate culture, Mr. Mercer. We seek partners who demonstrate similar commitment to tradition and stability. His phone sits on the glass coffee table, screen dark. He could call someone. There's always someone willing to fill an evening with meaningless conversation and practice smiles. Instead, he takes another sip of scotch, letting the silence press in around him. He's built exactly the life he planned. Successful, controlled, predictable. So why does it feel like he's looking at a perfect photograph of something hollow? The next morning brings a storm of meetings and crisis management. Julian sits at the head of his conference table watching Richard pace before the floor-to-ceiling windows. His business partner's usual polish shows signs of strain, his tie slightly askew, his movements sharp with tension. The Kobayashi representatives are wavering, Richard says, turning to face Julian. They're expressing concerns about your suitability as a long-term partner. Julian's fingers tighten around his pen. Because of the tabloids? Because you project instability. Richard drops into a chair. They're old school, Julian. They want someone reliable, grounded, someone with a family, roots in the community. Not, he gestures vaguely, a playboy bachelor who makes page 6 twice a month. I haven't dated anyone seriously in over a year. Exactly my point. Richard leans forward, his expression intense. You need to show commitment, stability, the kind that comes with... If you're suggesting I need a wife, Julian cuts in, you can stop right there. A respectable image is the key to closing this deal. Richard meets Julian's glare without flinching. You need to show them you're more than tabloid fodder. Julian stands, moving to the window. Below, the city pulses with morning traffic, each vehicle following its prescribed path. The thought of a relationship, even a strategic one, makes his skin crawl. But losing the Kobayashi deal would set them back years, maybe destroy everything he's built. Find me options, he says finally, his voice hard. Discreet ones. Richard nods and leaves, closing the door silently behind him. Julian remains at the window, his reflection ghostly in the glass. The idea is distasteful, but he's built his empire on calculated risks and strategic moves. What's one more? Across town, Elise sits in Miss Callahan's dimly lit office, trying to focus on the lawyer's words through a haze of exhaustion. Morning light filters through dusty blinds, catching on the diplomas that line the walls. The judge is concerned about your financial stability, Miss Callahan says, adjusting her reading glasses. The relatives petitioning for Anna's custody have stable incomes, large homes. They can provide the kind of security the court looks for in these cases. Elise's hands curl into fists in her lap. I'm her only real family. I've been there since she was born. Doesn't that count for anything? Of course it does. Miss Callahan's voice softens. But the system isn't always fair. You need to show the court that Anna will have security with you. Financial security, a stable home environment. Even the appearance of stability could make all the difference. The words hit like stones, each one adding to the weight on Elise's chest. She's fought so hard, worked endless hours, sacrificed everything for Anna. But love alone isn't enough. Not when the system measures worth in bank statements and square footage. That afternoon, Julian meets with his lawyer in a private conference room. Mr. Harris spreads documents across the polished table, his manner businesslike. A temporary, contractual marriage, he explains, tapping a particular page. Carefully structured, completely legal. You don't need a real marriage. You need the appearance of one. Julian scowls, but doesn't interrupt. The idea leaves a bitter taste in his mouth, yet he can't deny its potential effectiveness. A strategic alliance, nothing more. The kind of deal he makes every day. Meanwhile, Elise sits in her studio, staring at an unfinished canvas. Her phone rings, startling her from her thoughts. The caller ID shows Miss Carter, a gallery owner she's worked with occasionally. I have an unusual proposition, Miss Carter says after pleasantries. It's unconventional, but it might solve your financial problems and help with the custody situation. Elise listens, her stomach nodding as Miss Carter outlines the arrangement. A temporary marriage with financial compensation. Security for Anna, stability in the eyes of the court. But the thought of trading her independence, of tying her life to a stranger's agenda. She glances at Anna, who sits at her little table, happily drawing flowers and butterflies. The sight of her niece's innocent contentment makes the decision both harder and easier. The next day finds Elise and Anna at Washington Square Park. Spring sunshine warms the air, and Anna chases a brilliant orange butterfly across the grass. Elise watches, her heart full of love and fear. How many more moments like this will they have? Suddenly, Anna trips over a loose stone. She falls hard, scraping her knee on the pathway. Tears well in her eyes as Elise rushes forward, but before she reaches her niece, a tall figure kneels beside Anna. The man pulls a crisp handkerchief from his pocket, gently dabbing at the scrape. You're brave, he says softly, offering Anna a rare smile. I bet that butterfly was worth chasing. Elise arrives breathless, taking in the stranger's expensive suit and commanding presence. Their eyes meet, hers guarded, his cool and assessing. Recognition flickers in his gaze. You must be Elise, he says, rising smoothly to his feet. Even his voice carries authority, each word precisely chosen. Thank you, Elise manages, her tone clipped. Are you okay, sweetheart? She asks Anna, who nods, already distracted by a nearby squirrel. Julian Mercer, he introduces himself, though they both know it's unnecessary. Perhaps we should talk. They move to a nearby bench, maintaining careful distance. Julian outlines the contract in precise clinical terms while Anna plays within sight. Elise listens, her jaw tight. The thought of binding herself to this cold, calculating man makes her skin crawl. Yet when she looks at Anna, her heart clenches with fierce protectiveness. You don't have to like me, Julian says, his voice low and direct. But this could solve both our problems. Elise takes a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision press down on her shoulders. Anna's future, her dreams, everything hangs on this moment. Fine, she says finally, for Anna's sake. They shake hands, a brittle alliance formed in spring sunshine. Neither knows how profoundly their lives are about to change, how this calculated arrangement will challenge everything they think they understand about love, art, and the true meaning of security. The elevator ascends with mechanical precision, each floor taking Elise further from everything familiar. Anna bounces on her toes beside her, clutching her favorite sketchbook. Their single suitcase and box of art supplies seem inadequate against the gleaming chrome and marble surrounding them. Look, Annalise, we're almost in the clouds. Anna presses her face against the glass wall, her breath fogging the immaculate surface. Elise's stomach lurches, though whether from the height or their situation, she can't tell. Julian stands at the opposite corner, his reflection a study in controlled posture. He hasn't spoken since they entered the building, letting his assistant handle the security clearance and paperwork. The elevator chimes softly and the doors slide open to reveal a hallway that belongs in a magazine spread. Julian steps out first, his shoes clicking against marble floors that probably cost more than Elise's entire apartment. This way. His voice echoes in the empty space. Anna skips ahead, her worn sneakers squeaking. The sound feels like rebellion against the sterile perfection surrounding them. Elise follows more slowly, taking in the stark white walls and minimalist art pieces that seem chosen for price rather than passion. Julian produces a keycard and opens the penthouse door with practiced efficiency. Your rooms are down the left hallway. He gestures vaguely. Anna's is the blue one, yours is adjacent. The housekeeper comes Mondays and Thursdays. Try not to leave art supplies anywhere visible when she's here. Elise bristles at his tone but swallows her retort. This is a business arrangement, nothing more. We'll stay out of your way. Perfect. Julian checks his watch. I have calls until 6. Marcus will show you the rest. He disappears down the opposite hallway, leaving Elise with his assistant, who materializes from somewhere behind them. Marcus's smile is professionally pleasant as he launches into a detailed explanation of security protocols, meal schedules, and household rules. Elise half listens, watching Anna explore the vast living room. The little girl seems tiny against the floor-to-ceiling windows, her reflection ghostly in the glass. The city spreads out below them like a distant dream. And of course, Mr. Mercer prefers advance notice of any visitors, Marcus concludes. There won't be any visitors, Elise says flatly. She hefts her box of supplies. Which room did you say was mine? The guest room is larger than her old apartment's main room, decorated in shades of gray and cream that remind her of an upscale hotel. Elise sets up her easel in the corner by the window, arranging her paints and brushes with careful precision. The familiar scent of linseed oil and turpentine helps ground her. A shadow in the doorway makes her turn. Julian stands there, his expression unreadable as he surveys her makeshift studio. The ventilation system is sensitive, he says after a moment. Keep the windows open when you're working with oils. Fine. Elise turns back to her supplies, unable to bear his scrutiny. She hears him hesitate, then retreat, his footsteps fading into silence. Anna appears in the doorway, her eyes bright. Can I set up my art table next to yours? Of course, sweetheart. Elise manages a smile. Why don't you choose which corner you want? As Anna deliberates with solemn concentration, Elise unpacks their meager belongings. Her clothes look lost in the massive walk-in closet. She hangs her single cocktail dress next to the empty spaces where designer labels should go, trying not to think about upcoming social obligations. The silence of the penthouse wraps around them like expensive fabric, smooth and suffocating. Somewhere beyond the walls, she hears Julian's voice, clipped and professional as he conducts his business. The sound reminds her that this too is just business, a contract, nothing more. Evening arrives with geometric shadows stretching across pristine floors. Elise helps Anna arrange her art supplies, of both of them jumping when Julian's voice comes through an intercom near the door. Dinner will be served in the main dining room at 7. Anna looks up from her crayons. Is that like the announcements at school? Something like that. Elise checks her phone. 6:40. Let's get cleaned up, okay? The dining room could seat a small corporate board. Julian sits at the head of the massive table, already in place when they arrive. He's changed from his business suit to a casual shirt that probably costs more than Elise's monthly grocery budget. Please, sit. He gestures to the chairs nearest him. A uniformed server appears silently, placing covered plates before them. Anna climbs into her chair, eyes wide at the formal place setting. There are so many forks. Start from the outside and work your way in, Julian says, his voice softer than Elise has heard it. That's what my mother taught me. The mention of family surprises Elise. She studies him as he shows Anna which fork to use first, noting how his usual sharp edges seem to blur slightly. I learned about art today, Anna announces, carefully spearing a piece of perfectly roasted chicken. Miss Thompson says we're going to paint self-portraits next week. Is that so? Julian's tone is politely interested. Uh-huh. I'm going to paint myself as a famous artist, like Aunt Elise. Anna beams. Maybe I'll paint murals in fancy buildings when I grow up. Something flickers across Julian's face. Pain, regret, before his professional mask slides back into place. The market for corporate art is quite competitive. Art isn't just about markets, Elise says before she can stop herself. Julian's jaw tightens. Of course, my apologies. He turns to his plate, effectively ending the conversation. The rest of dinner passes in careful silence, broken only by Anna's occasional comments about school and art class. Elise watches Julian's responses, noting how he seems to soften slightly when speaking directly to Anna, only to retreat behind his walls moments later. Late that evening, Elise stands before her easel, brush hovering over canvas. The city lights glitter beyond her window like fallen stars, but she barely sees them. Her mind keeps returning to Julian's reactions at dinner, the way his mask slipped when Anna mentioned art. The sound of his pacing drifts through the wall. She catches fragments of his voice, something about profit margins and strategic partnerships. A door slams somewhere in the penthouse, followed by the sharp click of dress shoes on marble. Morning brings weak sunshine and the scent of expensive coffee. Elise finds Anna already at the kitchen island, happily devouring what appears to be a professionally prepared breakfast. Good morning, Julian says from behind his tablet. There's coffee in the carafe. Marcus arranged for a car to take Anna to school. I can take her, Elise starts, but Julian cuts her off. The press will be watching. Better to use a professional service. His tone brooks no argument. Anna looks up from her perfect pancakes. Why do you look sad even though you have such shiny things? Julian's tablet lowers slightly, his expression startled. I'm not sad. I'm focused. But your eyes look sad, Anna persists. Like Tommy at school when his goldfish died, even though he pretended he was okay. Anna, Elise warns gently, seeing Julian's shoulders tense. Maybe you should draw something happy, Anna suggests, undeterred. That always helps me feel better. Julian's face hardens, though something vulnerable flashes in his eyes before he masks it. I have meetings to prepare for. Excuse me. He stands abruptly, leaving his half-finished coffee behind. Ahead that evening brings their first public appearance. Julian appears in an impeccable tuxedo, his expression stormy. The car will be here in an hour. Your dress is being delivered shortly. Elise looks up from helping Anna with breakfast. What dress? For the gala, my assistant handled it. He adjusts his cufflinks with mechanical precision. The Kobayashi executives will be there. We need to make an impression. Before Elise can respond, a uniformed courier arrives with a garment bag. The dress inside probably costs more than her monthly rent, a sweep of black silk that manages to be both elegant and intimidating. Hair and makeup will arrive in 20 minutes, Julian adds, not meeting her eyes. Anna's sitter should be here soon. I'm not leaving Anna with a stranger, Elise says firmly. Julian's jaw tightens. This event is crucial for... Then she comes with us. They lock eyes across the kitchen island, neither willing to back down. Finally, Julian exhales sharply. Fine, Marcus will arrange appropriate attire for her as well. An hour later, they step out of a sleek black car into a storm of camera flashes. Julian's hand finds Elise's elbow, his grip steady but impersonal. The borrowed dress feels like armor as they navigate the red carpet. Smile, Julian murmurs near her ear, but not too much. We're in love, not infatuated. Elise forces her lips to curve upward, hating how artificial it feels. Anna walks between them in a navy blue dress that makes her look like a doll, her eyes wide at the spectacle. Mr. Mercer, over here! Reporters shout from behind velvet ropes. How long have you and Miss Bennett been together? Is it true you met through her art? Julian guides them past with practiced ease, offering nothing but polite nods. Inside the ballroom, the air feels thick with perfume and pretense. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow shadows over crowds of people who probably spend more on lunch than Elise makes in a month. Julian. A silver-haired man approaches, trailing younger executives like planets around a sun. We missed you at the board meeting. Thomas. Julian's smile doesn't reach his eyes. May I present my wife, Elise, and our niece, Anna. Elise notes the subtle emphasis on our, the way he stakes his claim on their fictional family. The executives bow slightly, their scrutiny barely concealed. We've heard so much about you, one says, his accent marking him as one of the Kobayashi representatives. Julian has been quite private about your relationship. Elise feels Julian tense beside her. Before she can fumble for a response, Anna tugs at the executive's sleeve. Would you like a snack? She holds up a napkin filled with tiny hors d'oeuvres. I tried all of them. The little pink ones taste like fancy tuna fish. The man blinks, then laughs, a genuine sound that cuts through the artificial atmosphere. Thank you, little one. That's very thoughtful. The other executives smile, their rigid postures softening. Julian watches with barely concealed surprise as Anna charms them with her innocent observations and honest enthusiasm. Later, Elise finds herself alone with Julian on a secluded balcony. The night air carries the faint scent of expensive cigars and distant traffic. I felt like a fraud in there, she admits, the words slipping out before she can stop them. Julian is quiet for a moment. It gets easier. His voice holds an unexpected note of understanding, though sometimes I wonder if that's a good thing. The honesty in his tone startles her. She turns to study his profile, catching a glimpse of something vulnerable beneath his usual mask. But before she can respond, his walls slam back into place. We should return inside, he says briskly. The Kobayashi executives will expect another appearance before we leave. Days blur together in a rhythm of social obligations and careful distance. Elise paints while Julian works, their lives intersecting only at carefully orchestrated moments. But something shifts one evening when Julian pauses outside her makeshift studio. She feels his presence before she sees him, a shadow in her peripheral vision. The painting on her easel is still rough, an abstract exploration of tension and release, all sharp lines and bleeding colors. Julian stands silent, watching her work. The weight of his attention makes her brushstrokes hesitate. It's good, he says finally, the words falling like stones in still water. But his tone carries an edge of something darker, resentment, regret. Later that night, Julian stares at his desk, shuffling papers without seeing them. The image of Elise painting haunts him, the confident strokes, the fearless way she approaches the canvas. Her latest piece mocks him from his memory, all raw emotion and unrestrained creativity. His phone buzzes. Marcus. Sir, the Kobayashi representatives have concerns. Marcus's voice is carefully neutral. They're questioning the timing of your marriage. Mr. Tanaka specifically mentioned the tabloid coverage from last month. Julian's fingers drum against his desk. What exactly did he say? That sudden changes in lifestyle can indicate instability. A pause. They're reconsidering the timeline of the deal. The words hit like physical blows. Julian ends the call, his carefully constructed world threatening to unravel. Through the wall, he hears Elise humming as she works on her latest piece. The sound grates against his nerves, a reminder of everything he gave up for this life. His father's voice echoes in his memory. Art doesn't pay the bills, son. The Mercer name stands for something. A text from Richard appears. Board meeting tomorrow. Better have answers about Kobayashi. Julian loosens his tie, feeling the walls close in. The control he's cultivated for years slips through his fingers like water. Meanwhile, Elise reads an email that makes her heart race. A small but respected gallery wants to feature her work next month. She's been waiting years for an opportunity like this. Her brush moves with renewed energy, each stroke filled with possibility. The exhibition could change everything, prove to the custody judge that her art is more than just a hobby. What are you working on? Anna asks from the doorway. Something special. Elise adds another layer of color. A gallery wants to show my paintings. Really? Anna bounces on her toes. Can I come see them when they're up? Of course, sweetheart. Elise touches the canvas with delicate strokes. It's going to take a lot of work to get ready, but, Miss Bennett, Julian's voice cuts through her excitement. He stands in the doorway, tension radiating from his rigid posture. A word? Elise follows him to his office, noting the scattered papers on his usually immaculate desk. What's wrong? The Kobayashi representatives are visiting next week. We'll need to attend several events. His voice is clipped. I expect your full participation. I have a gallery showing coming up. I need to prepare. A gallery showing? His laugh holds no humor. This arrangement requires certain priorities, Miss Bennett. My company's future. My art isn't just a hobby, Elise cuts in. This could make a real difference for my custody case. Real difference. Julian's control snaps. Wake up, Elise. Do you think anyone takes amateur art seriously? This little dream of yours. Little dream, heat floods Elise's face. At least I have the courage to pursue my passion instead of burying it under expensive suits and corporate meetings. Julian recoils as if slapped. You know nothing about me. I know you're jealous, Elise says, the words sharp as knives. I see how you look at my work. What did you give up, Julian? What dreams did you bury to become this perfect, empty version of yourself? Get out. His voice is deadly quiet. Elise turns on her heel, trembling with rage and hurt. In her studio, she stares at her unfinished painting through burning eyes. The colors blur together, beautiful and painful, like everything in this gilded cage. Anna finds her later, small hands touching her arm. Are you and Julian fighting? Sometimes grown-ups disagree, Elise manages. He looked scared, Anna says softly. Like when I had to give my presentation at school and pretended I wasn't afraid. Elise pulls Anna close, breathing in the clean scent of her hair. Beyond the window, the city sparkles with false promises, while behind her, the wall between her room and Julian's office feels thicker than ever. In his office, Julian stands at his window, watching lights flicker in distant buildings. His reflection stares back at him, perfectly tailored suit and carefully styled hair, masking the turmoil beneath. In his desk drawer, an old sketchbook lies buried under contracts and business plans, its pages filled with dreams he hasn't dared to face in years. The night stretches before them, each in their separate spaces, surrounded by walls built of fear, pride, and unspoken truths. Tomorrow will bring more performances, more pretense, more carefully maintained distance. But tonight, the facade has cracked, revealing glimpses of the real people hiding behind their masks. An artist fighting for her dreams, a businessman running from his, and a little girl who sees more clearly than either of them dares to admit. The scent of oil paint mingles with the crisp night air, drifting through the penthouse's floor-to-ceiling windows. Elise stands before her easel in the corner of the living room she's claimed as her temporary studio, brush poised over canvas. The piece before her captures Manhattan's skyline, fractured into geometric shapes, each section bathed in different shades of gold and shadow. She adds another stroke of deep amber, letting the color bleed into darker tones. Footsteps sound behind her, Julian's distinctive measured stride. Elise's shoulders tense, but she keeps working, unwilling to break her concentration. The footsteps pause in the doorway. She can feel his presence, a weight in the air that makes her pulse quicken. Julian moves closer, his shoes silent on the polished floor. From the corner of her eye, Elise catches his reflection in the window. Suit jacket discarded, tie loosened, shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. He studies her painting with an intensity that makes her skin prickle. It's incredible, he murmurs, so quietly she almost thinks she imagined it. Elise turns, caught off guard by the raw admiration in his voice. Julian stands closer than she expected, his usual mask of cool detachment softened by something she can't quite name. Their eyes meet, and for a moment the air feels charged with unspoken possibilities. She searches his face, noting the shadows under his eyes, the slight furrow between his brows that speaks of a long day's strain. But it's the look in his eyes that holds her, a mixture of appreciation and something deeper, more vulnerable. Her heart speeds up, and she almost tells him how much his words mean, how no one has looked at her work quite like this before. Julian's hand twitches at his side as if he wants to reach out. His lips part, and Elise holds her breath and waiting. But whatever he might have said remains unspoken. The moment stretches between them like a thread pulled too tight, fragile and ready to snap. Later that night, they find themselves on the penthouse balcony. The spring air carries a hint of warmth, though Elise wraps her arms around herself against the slight chill. City lights sparkle below them like fallen stars, beautiful but distant. Julian leans against the railing, his profile sharp against the night sky. I wanted to be an artist once, he says suddenly, his voice rough with fatigue and something that might be regret, before the family business, before everything. Elise turns to study him, surprised by this glimpse beneath his carefully maintained facade. What happened? My father. Julian's fingers tighten on the railing. He made it clear that art was a hobby, not a future. The company needed an heir, not a dreamer. The bitterness in his voice resonates with Elise's own struggles. Sometimes I wonder if I'm fooling myself, she admits, the words slipping out before she can stop them. If everyone who says art isn't practical is right. If I'm just being selfish, risking Anna's future for my dreams. Julian turns to face her, his expression softening. But you didn't give up, he says quietly. You kept going. The words hang in the air between them. Elise's breath catches as Julian takes a step closer, close enough that she can smell his expensive cologne mixing with the night air. His eyes search hers, and she sees her own longing reflected back at her. The desire for understanding, for connection, for someone who sees past the walls they've both built. The shrill buzz of Julian's phone shatters the moment. He steps back, reaching for his pocket with practiced efficiency. Just like that, his walls slam back into place. Excuse me, he mutters, already turning away. I need to take this. Elise watches him retreat into the penthouse, his shoulders squaring as he answers the call. The warmth of their shared moment dissipates like morning fog, leaving her alone with the glittering city and the ghost of what might have been. In his office, Julian sits at his desk, surrounded by the trappings of success that suddenly feel hollow. He pulls open the bottom drawer, retrieving a leather-bound sketchbook he hasn't opened in years. The pages are filled with charcoal drawings, cityscapes, portraits, abstract pieces that speak of a younger man's dreams. His fingers trace the lines of an unfinished sketch, feeling the echo of passion that once drove his art. Elise's unwavering dedication to her craft stirs something in him: regret, envy, admiration. He thinks of her in the makeshift studio, completely absorbed in her work, radiating the kind of fulfillment that has eluded him for years. The sound of his phone buzzing again makes him snap the sketchbook shut. He shoves it back in the drawer, burying it beneath contracts and reports. It's too late for dreams, he tells himself. He has responsibilities, obligations, a reputation to maintain. But the memory of Elise's eyes, bright with creative fire, haunts him. Meanwhile, Elise adds the final touches to her painting, but the earlier magic has faded. The piece feels different now, darker, more conflicted. She studies the fractured cityscape, seeing in it a reflection of her own splintered emotions. Julian's brief moment of openness only makes his subsequent withdrawal more painful. Her fingers ghost over the canvas, tracing the lines where light meets shadow. Despite their shared vulnerabilities, despite the connection she felt growing between them, a chasm still separates them. Julian remains locked in his world of spreadsheets and business deals while she pours her heart onto canvas. Even Anna's presence, usually a bridge between them, can't quite span the gap. Elise cleans her brushes with mechanical precision, trying to ignore the hollow ache in her chest. The night stretches ahead, full of questions she's not ready to answer and feelings she's not ready to name. Morning brings chaos. Julian storms into the penthouse, his face thunderous. The precise line of his suit can't hide the tension in his shoulders, the barely contained fury in his movements. Elise looks up from where she's arranging paintings for her upcoming gallery showing, immediately sensing the shift in atmosphere. The gallery called, she says, hoping to break the tension. They want to feature 3 more pieces than we originally. Why are you wasting time on this? Julian's voice cuts through the air like ice. No one cares about these meaningless scribbles. The words hit Elise like a physical blow. She stares at Julian, watching his face harden into familiar lines of contempt. The canvas in her hands suddenly feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. Meaningless? Her voice comes out barely above a whisper, trembling with hurt and disbelief. Is that what you think? That everything I've worked for, everything I am, is just a waste? Julian opens his mouth, something flickering in his eyes, regret, perhaps, or pain, but his jaw locks, his fists clenching at his sides. I have bigger things to worry about than paint on a canvas, he mutters, his voice hollow. Tears burn behind Elise's eyes, but she refuses to let them fall. With deliberate care, she sets down the canvas she's holding. The painting, a study in light and shadow, hope and fear, seems to mock her now. Without another word, she turns and walks to her room, closing the door with a quiet click that echoes with finality. The silence that follows is deafening. Julian stands frozen in the living room, surrounded by Elise's art, vivid splashes of color that seem to accuse him with their beauty, their honesty. He wants to follow her, to take back the cruel words, to explain that his anger has nothing to do with her and everything to do with his own failures. But pride and fear hold him in place. The weight of his regrets, his father's expectations, the failing business deal, it all presses down on him until he can barely breathe. Instead of bridging the gap he's created, Julian retreats to his office, seeking refuge in the familiar world of contracts and spreadsheets. Elise sits on the edge of her bed, staring at the wall without seeing it. Anna climbs into her lap, sensitive as always to emotional undercurrents. Elise wraps her arms around her niece, breathing in the sweet scent of her shampoo, letting Anna's warmth anchor her to the present. "Are you sad?" Anna asks, touching Elise's cheek with small fingers. "No, sweetheart." The lie tastes bitter, but Elise forces a smile. "Just tired. How about we read that new book you got?" As Anna fetches the book, Elise makes a decision. She'll focus on what's real, her art and Anna. These are the constants in her life, the things that have never betrayed her. The dream of something more with Julian was just that, a dream, as insubstantial as morning mist. The days that follow settle into a new pattern. Elise throws herself into preparing for the gallery showing, channeling her hurt into her work. Her brushstrokes become bolder, her colors more intense. Each piece carries an edge of raw emotion that wasn't there before. She and Julian move through the penthouse like ghosts, careful to maintain distance. Their conversations, when necessary, are reduced to polite exchanges about schedules and practical matters. Elise keeps her eyes lowered, focusing on Anna or her work, anything to avoid seeing the cold mask Julian wears, or worse, catching glimpses of regret in his eyes. Anna notices the change, of course. "Why doesn't Julian eat dinner with us anymore?" she asks one evening, pushing pasta around her plate. "He's very busy with work, sweetie." Elise manages a reassuring smile, though her heart clenches. You know how important his job is. At night, Elise lies awake, Julian's words echoing in her mind. Meaningless scribbles. The phrase cuts deep, confirming her worst fears, that her passion, her art, her very essence holds no value in his world of profit margins and business deals. Julian buries himself in work, spending long hours at the office or locked in his study. The Kobayashi deal continues to slip away, despite his desperate attempts to salvage it. Marcus and Richard express concern about his increasing isolation, but Julian dismisses them with sharp words and sharper glares. One evening, he pauses in the hallway, caught by the sound of Elise and Anna's laughter drifting from the living room. The warm, genuine sound makes his chest ache. He stands there, unseen, listening to their quiet conversation, feeling the weight of his self-imposed exile. Julian's hand moves to his pocket, where he keeps a small sketch he tore from his old notebook, a reminder of who he used to be, of dreams he buried long ago. He wants to join them, to apologize, to explain. But the words stick in his throat, tangled with years of repressed emotions and carefully maintained control. The distance between them grows, a chasm filled with unspoken words and untended wounds. What once felt like a beginning now feels like an ending, each day drawing them further apart. The penthouse, despite its luxury, has never felt colder or more empty. The silk dress slides against Elise's skin like a whisper of judgment. She studies her reflection in the full-length mirror, barely recognizing the polished woman staring back. The gown, Julian's choice, hugs her curves in a way that feels both elegant and suffocating. Navy blue, like the night sky trapped in fabric, like the growing darkness between them. "You look pretty, Aunt Elise." Anna bounces on the master bed, already in her pajamas. Mrs. Chen, the night sitter, stands nearby with a gentle smile. "Thank you, sweetheart." Elise forces her lips to curve upward, though her chest aches. "Be good for Mrs. Chen, okay? We won't be too late." Anna's face falls slightly. "Can't I come to the party?" "Not this time." Elise crosses to the bed, careful not to wrinkle the dress, and presses a kiss to Anna's forehead. "But tomorrow we'll have our own special day. Just us." "Promise?" "Promise." Footsteps in the doorway make Elise stiffen. Julian stands there in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, every inch the successful CEO. His eyes sweep over her with clinical assessment. "The car's waiting," he says, voice clipped. "We should go." Elise nods, her throat tight. One more evening of pretense. One more night of playing the devoted wife while her dreams slip through her fingers like sand. The charity gala blazes with crystal chandeliers and flowing champagne. Julian's arm wraps around her waist, his grip firm but impersonal. Camera flashes explode around them, capturing what looks like the perfect power couple. Elise's cheeks ache from holding her smile. Julian, darling. A woman in red sweeps toward them, dripping diamonds and air kisses. And this must be the lovely wife we've heard so much about. Elizabeth. Julian's voice carries practiced warmth. Yes, this is Elise. Darling, Elise serves on the hospital board with me. The endearment falls from his lips like a rehearsed line. Elise plays her part, extending her hand. It's wonderful to meet you. Such a beautiful couple, Elizabeth gushes. Julian, dear, you must tell me how you managed to catch such a talented artist. I heard her work is causing quite a stir in certain circles. Julian's fingers dig into Elise's waist. Yes, well, Elise's painting is quite charming, though she's cut back considerably since we married. Family comes first, after all. The words slice through her like paper cuts. Elise takes a long sip of champagne, letting the bubbles burn away the urge to scream. Her latest canvas sits unfinished in her studio, colors waiting to bloom. The evening drags on in a blur of fake smiles and hollow conversations. Julian works the room with practiced ease, his hand never leaving her waist. To anyone watching, they must look perfectly in sync. Only Elise feels the growing chasm between them, wide enough to swallow her whole. Later, in the back of the town car, silence spreads like frost. Julian loosens his bow tie, staring out the window at passing streetlights. Elise watches his reflection in the glass, searching for any crack in his perfect facade. The Kobayashi representative seemed impressed, he says finally. Your presence helped. Is that all I am? The words escape before she can stop them. A prop for your business deals? Julian's jaw tightens. You knew what this arrangement was from the beginning. Don't pretend otherwise. Right. Elise turns to her own window, blinking hard. Just a contract. How could I forget? The penthouse feels cavernous when they return. Elise checks on Anna, fast asleep with her stuffed elephant clutched tight. Mrs. Chen has left a note about their evening, dinner, bath, bedtime story. All the moments Elise should have been here for, traded for an evening of pretense. She retreats to her studio, still wearing the silk dress. The space is smaller than her old apartment, but Julian had it converted when they married. Proper lighting, storage for supplies, even a sink for cleaning brushes. A golden cage for his wife's quaint hobby. Elise stands before her latest piece, a swirling landscape of emotions she can't voice. Blues and purples crash together like waves, shot through with veins of gold. The brush feels right in her hand, more natural than the evening clutch she carried tonight. Each stroke is a declaration, each color a truth she can't speak aloud. In the quiet hours before dawn, Elise loses herself in the canvas, letting the paint speak what her voice cannot. Julian passes by the open door once, twice. She feels his presence like a shadow, but he never enters. Perhaps he's afraid of what he might see, not just on the canvas, but in her eyes. The truth that this arrangement is slowly killing them both. The next morning arrives too soon. Elise changes into a conservative dress for brunch with the Kobayashi executives, her movements mechanical. The bruised dark circles under her eyes disappear under careful makeup. Another mask to wear. The restaurant's private room gleams with old money elegance. Mr. Tanaka, the lead executive, smiles warmly as Julian pulls out her chair. Mrs. Mercer, he says, his accent precise. We were just discussing the importance of family and business relationships. Your presence brings such authenticity to the partnership. Elise's coffee cup trembles slightly. Authentic. The word tastes like ash. Julian reaches for her hand across the table, his grip too tight. Yes, Elise and Anna are my whole world now. Amazing how the right woman can change everything. The lie hangs in the air like poison. Elise stares into her coffee, watching cream create spiral patterns in the dark liquid. Her fingers itch for a brush, for colors that don't lie. Mr. Tanaka nods approvingly. Family gives us roots, purpose. Without such connections, business is merely numbers on paper. His keen eyes study them both. You are very fortunate, Mr. Mercer. Julian's smile doesn't reach his eyes. Indeed. The drive home stretches endless. Buildings blur past the window, each one a prison of glass and steel, like the cage she's built around her heart. I can't keep pretending for you, Julian. The words fall into the silence like stones. He doesn't look at her. We have a contract. Is that all you see? Papers and signatures? His knuckles whiten on the steering wheel. It's all I can afford to see. Elise turns away, throat burning. In her mind, Anna's drawing of their dream house floats like a mirage. Purple door, art studio, room for hope to grow. All of it slipping away with each practiced smile, each hollow touch. Her phone buzzes. Miss Callahan's name flashes on the screen, making Elise's heart stutter. She answers, hearing the hesitation in her lawyer's voice before the news even comes. The hearing's been postponed, Elise. Procedural delays could be weeks, maybe months. The words hit like physical blows. Elise grips the phone tighter, fighting to keep her voice steady. How? How long? I'm pushing for expedited review, but with the current backlog, Ms. Callahan sighs. I'm sorry, Elise. I know how hard this waiting is. The call ends. Elise stares at the dark screen, feeling her carefully constructed world crumble. All the compromises, all the pretense, for nothing. Back at the penthouse, Anna runs to greet her, paint smeared across one cheek. Look what I made! She holds up a watercolor butterfly, wings dripping rainbow colors. Is it good enough for your gallery? Elise drops to her knees, pulling Anna close. It's perfect, sweetheart. Absolutely perfect. She breathes in the scent of paint and strawberry shampoo, anchoring herself in this one true thing. Are we still going to get our own house soon? Anna's voice is muffled against her shoulder. With the purple door, Elise's heart cracks. Of course. We have to be patient a little longer. That evening, she packs their bags. Each item feels heavy with dreams and disappointment. Anna's stuffed elephant, her own brushes, photographs that captured moments of almost happiness. Julian finds her in the bedroom, staring at the half-full suitcase. His voice sounds strange, almost raw. Where are you going? Elise doesn't turn around. The contract ends soon, Julian. There's nothing left for me here. Elise, don't. She zips the suitcase with finality. We both know this was never real. Anna appears in the doorway, clutching her backpack. Ready, Aunt Elise. Elise takes her hand, warm and small and real. They walk out together, leaving Julian standing in the emptiness he chose. Home? Anna asks as they reach the lobby. Yes, sweetheart. Elise hails a cab, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. We're going home. Through the penthouse windows, Julian watches their taxi disappear into the river of traffic below. The silence spreads like a stain, marking all the spaces where Anna's laughter used to echo, where Elise's presence made the sterile rooms feel alive. He pours a scotch, but the familiar ritual brings no comfort. The crystal tumbler catches light from the city below, fracturing it into cold, empty patterns. Every surface gleams with precise perfection, and suddenly he can't stand it. His office calls. Marcus leaves messages about damage control, about salvaging the Kobayashi deal. Richard demands emergency meetings. Julian lets them all go to voicemail, standing motionless as night claims the sky. He moves through the penthouse like a ghost, past Anna's empty room with its half-finished paintings still pinned to the walls, past Elise's studio, where the scent of oils and turpentine lingers. The unfinished canvas stands as an accusation. Blues and purples swirling into gold, raw emotion captured in color. The people around him seem hollow now, their conversations a meaningless drone. Board meetings, charity galas, carefully orchestrated appearances, all of it feels like a script he's forgotten how to read. The control he once prized has become a prison of his own making. Late that night, Julian sits in his study, surrounded by papers he can no longer focus on. A small black notebook catches his eye. An old sketchbook he'd buried under contracts and reports. His fingers trace the worn cover, remembering dreams he abandoned for his father's approval, for the safety of control. I'm sorry, he whispers to the empty room, to the ghosts of chances lost. But words aren't enough to fill this void, to rebuild what fear has broken. He needs to change. Not just his actions, but the walls he's built around his heart. A tear slides down his cheek, unexpected and real. In its wake, something shifts, a crack in the perfect facade, letting truth seep through. He can't let fear define him any longer. Can't let Elise and Anna slip away because he was too afraid to reach for happiness. Julian stares out at the city lights, seeing not the empire he's built, but all the dreams he's denied. Tomorrow will bring decisions, consequences, the hard work of change. But tonight, he lets himself feel the full weight of loss, and with it, the first stirrings of hope. The city lights blur through Julian's penthouse windows. each pinprick of brightness a reminder of how far he's climbed and how far he's fallen. His reflection fragments across the glass. Designer suit, perfect posture, hollow eyes. The success he's chased for so long feels as empty as the vast space around him. Julian's fingers tighten around the sketch in his hands. Anna had given it to him that first day in the park, her small face beaming with pride as she presented her crayon masterpiece. But it's Elise's influence that shines through, the confident strokes, the way she taught Anna to capture light and shadow. Even in a child's drawing, her talent is undeniable. The ache in his chest sharpens. Julian moves to his office, footsteps echoing through the silent apartment. The bottom drawer of his desk opens with a soft scrape, revealing a leather-bound sketchbook he hasn't touched in years. The spine cracks as he opens it, releasing the musty scent of abandoned dreams. His old sketches fill the pages, cityscapes, portraits, abstract explorations of light and shadow. Some are tentative, others bold with youthful confidence. Julian traces the lines with trembling fingers, remembering the peace he once found in creation, before spreadsheets and profit margins consumed his world. "I was afraid," he whispers to the empty room. The admission burns his throat. Afraid of failing, of disappointing his father, of being vulnerable. So he'd locked away his passion, built walls of control and success, and in doing so, he'd pushed away the only person who made him feel truly alive. Julian pulls out his phone, his heart pounding as he dials. "Marcus, I need your help with something. An art exhibition. For Elise." The silence on the other end stretches for 3 heartbeats. "Sir?" Marcus's voice holds careful neutrality. "Is this related to the Kobayashi deal?" "No." Julian's voice comes out stronger than he expected. "This is about Elise, about making things right." Morning light streams through floor-to-ceiling windows as Julian paces his office. His usual precise movements have given way to restless energy as he outlines his vision to Marcus. "The Metropolitan Art Gallery," Julian insists. "Nothing less will do, and I want every major critic and collector there." Marcus's fingers fly across his tablet. The gallery is usually booked months in advance. "Make it happen." Julian pauses by the window. "Whatever it costs. And the guest list? The usual business contacts?" "No, this isn't about networking." Julian turns, his expression intense. "I want people who understand art, who can appreciate what Elise creates. Get me the top critics, gallery owners, serious collectors." Marcus studies him for a moment. "Sir, if this is a strategy to repair your image, it's not about my image." The words come out sharp. Julian forces himself to take a breath. "This is about her, about showing her that her talent deserves recognition." Understanding flickers across Marcus's face. He nods once and returns to his tablet. "I'll make the arrangements." Julian watches the city below, his reflection ghostly in the glass. For once, he can't control the outcome, can't predict how Elise will react. The uncertainty makes his hands shake, but he welcomes it. Some things are worth the risk. Elise stares at the cream-colored envelope in her hands, her heart stuttering against her ribs. The Metropolitan Art Gallery's logo gleams in gold leaf above her name. Inside, elegant script announces, "A celebration of Elise Bennett's artistry, hosted by Julian Mercer." The invitation trembles. Elise sets it on her kitchen counter before she can crumple it. Sunlight streams through her studio windows, catching on fresh canvases and the organized chaos of her workspace. This should be a dream come true, the recognition she's fought for. Instead, her chest feels tight with confusion and lingering hurt. "What is it, Aunt Elise?" Anna peers around her easel, paintbrush dripping blue onto her smock. "Nothing, sweetheart." But Anna's already spotted the invitation. "Is it from Julian?" She abandons her painting, leaving tiny footprints of blue across the floor. "Are we going to see him?" The hope in Anna's voice makes Elise's throat tight. "I don't know if..." A knock at the door saves her from answering. Miss Callahan stands in the hallway, briefcase in hand. "I heard about the exhibition," she says without preamble. "This is huge, Elise. It could be a publicity stunt." The words taste bitter. Another business strategy. Miss Callahan settles into a kitchen chair, studying Elise with knowing eyes. "Maybe. Or maybe this is his way of apologizing." "Through a grand gesture?" Elise snorts. "That's very Julian. Sometimes people apologize in the only way they know how." Miss Callahan's voice softens. "And sometimes we have to be brave enough to listen." Anna tugs at Elise's sleeve, leaving a smudge of blue paint. Please go, Aunt Elise. You deserve it. Elise looks down at her niece's earnest face, then back at the invitation. Her heart pounds like she's standing on the edge of a cliff, but maybe it's time to take the leap. Elise's heels click against marble as she enters the Metropolitan Art Gallery. The sound echoes through the grand hall, mixing with the hum of conversation and the soft classical music drifting from hidden speakers. Her breath catches. Her paintings line the walls, portraits, landscapes, abstract pieces that capture raw emotion in color and light. Professional lighting makes the colors glow, drawing gasps from the well-dressed crowd. Elise recognizes faces from art magazines and gallery openings, critics whose words can make or break careers. Your use of light is extraordinary, a woman in elegant black says, studying one of Elise's cityscapes. The way you capture the emotional weight of urban spaces. The technical skill is impressive, adds a man Elise recognizes as James Morrison, one of the city's most respected critics, but it's the authenticity that stands out. There's real soul here. Elise's fingers tremble. She grips Anna's hand tighter, anchoring herself in her niece's solid presence. Then she sees him. Julian stands by the podium in a perfectly tailored suit, but something's different. His usual mask of control has slipped, revealing a vulnerability that makes her heart stutter. Their eyes meet across the crowded room. Julian's lips curve into a hesitant smile that holds none of his usual confidence. For the first time, Elise sees past the successful businessman to the artist he might have been. The room falls silent as Julian steps up to the podium. His hands shake slightly as he adjusts the microphone, and something in Elise's chest clenches at this small sign of uncertainty. Thank you all for being here tonight. Julian's voice fills the space, steady despite his obvious nervousness. This exhibition isn't just a showcase of remarkable art, it's a tribute to a remarkable woman. He takes a deep breath, and Elise feels the whole room hold its breath with him. I met Elise Bennett when I was too afraid to be vulnerable, too afraid to be honest about who I am and what I feel. My fear made me cruel, and I almost destroyed the most beautiful thing I've ever known. Julian's eyes find hers, glistening with emotion. Elise taught me that true strength lies in passion and authenticity. Her art, her soul, is something I can never diminish. His voice wavers, but he pushes on. I wanted to be an artist once, but I gave up that dream. Seeing Elise's courage has made me realize that it's never too late to honor the truth of who we are. The applause is deafening, but Elise barely hears it. Her chest feels too tight, her vision blurring as tears threaten to fall. The walls she's built around her heart since that terrible argument crack and crumble. Anna squeezes her hand. He means it, Aunt Elise, she whispers, wise beyond her years. Elise takes a shaky breath and steps forward. The crowd parts like water, leaving a clear path to Julian. He stands frozen by the podium, hope and fear warring in his eyes. Time seems to slow as Elise stops in front of him. The noise of the crowd fades until it's just them, standing in a pocket of silence. You really believe in me? Her voice trembles. Julian nods, his own voice breaking. More than anything, the last of Elise's walls crumble. I forgive you, she whispers. Relief floods Julian's face. His shoulders sag as if released from a great weight. When Elise reaches for his hand, their fingers intertwine naturally. For the first time, they stand together not because of contracts or obligations, but because they choose to. The evening becomes a blur of congratulations and praise. Critics cluster around Elise, eager to discuss her technique and vision. Several red sold dots appear beside her paintings, each one representing more security for her future with Anna. This changes everything, Miss Callahan whispers, squeezing Elise's arm. The custody hearing will be a formality now. You've proven you can provide stability. Anna beams with pride, tugging at Elise's dress. I knew you could do it. Elise hugs her niece close, breathing in the familiar scent of strawberry shampoo and paint. The weight that's pressed on her chest for so long finally lifts. She has control over her future now, her art, her family, her life. Julian watches from across the room, a quiet smile playing at his lips. He makes no attempt to direct attention to himself or control the flow of conversations. For once, he seems content to let events unfold naturally. Richard and Marcus approach him, champagne glasses in hand. Brilliant PR move, Richard says. The press will eat this up. This wasn't about PR. Julian's voice is firm. It was about her. Of course, Richard smirks. Still, the timing with the Kobayashi deal doesn't matter. Julian's eyes never leave Elise. Some things are more important than business deals. Richard's eyebrows shoot up, but before he can respond, Elise appears at Julian's side. She slips her hand into his, the gesture natural and unhesitating. Stay, she says softly. Julian's heart leaps. He squeezes her hand, understanding the gift she's offering, a place by her side, not as a protector or provider, but as an equal. The gallery empties slowly, critics and collectors drifting away with final congratulations. Eventually, only Julian, Elise, and Anna remain. They step out into the night together, the city lights seeming warmer somehow. What now? Julian asks, a hint of his old uncertainty creeping in. Elise grins, the expression lighting up her whole face. We figure it out together. Julian takes her hand, and for the first time in his life, he feels at peace with not knowing what comes next. Anna skips ahead of them, humming a made-up tune that echoes off the buildings. The weeks that follow bring a different kind of intimacy. There are no grand declarations or dramatic gestures. Instead, they build trust in small moments. Sharing coffee in comfortable silence, Julian sketching while Elise paints, both of them helping Anna with her art projects. Julian attends Elise's gallery openings and proud to support her growing success. He helps her set up a proper studio, but is careful never to overshadow her achievements, and slowly, tentatively, he begins to draw again. These are good, Elise says one evening, looking through his sketchbook. You have a natural eye for composition. Julian tenses, old insecurities rising, but Elise just smiles and hands him a fresh pencil. Art isn't about perfection, she reminds him, it's about truth. One sunny afternoon finds them all in Elise's studio, working on a mural together. Anna perches on Julian's shoulders, adding splashes of yellow to the top of the wall while Elise fills in the lower sections with sweeping blues and greens. Paint drips onto Julian's expensive shirt, but he doesn't seem to notice. His laugh mingles with Anna's giggles as they work, the sound filling the space with joy. Elise pauses, brush halfway to the wall, drinking in the sight of them. As sunset paints the sky in brilliant colors, they step back to admire their work. The mural is a beautiful mess of their combined styles, Julian's precise lines, Anna's exuberant splashes, Elise's bold strokes. Like their family, it shouldn't work, but somehow it does. Julian wraps an arm around Elise's waist, and she leans into him naturally. Anna dances around them, adding imaginary finishing touches to their masterpiece with her paint-stained fingers. In this moment, surrounded by art and love, they found a different kind of wealth. One that can't be measured in bank accounts or square footage. They've found home. Thank you so much for watching and listening to our story. Your time and support mean the world to us. If this video resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content. Your engagement helps us grow and continue sharing meaningful stories. See you in the next video.